Good morning, everybody. It's Marty, the JavaScript party. My buddy Rhett back there. She's eagerly awaiting her nut because that is one of the highlights of her day. I actually got a walnut and I cracked it pretty good. I did a good job with it. Um, and so I think it's cracked enough for her to be able to get it open, but it is not like easy. So this should provide her what I had learned at one of my jobs, something called creative tension. And creative tension is a really interesting concept because it's the idea that um, when, like, let's say you had a contest in your high school or middle school or something like that, and you guys had this contest where it was like, um, who can touch the highest spot? You jump up and who can touch the highest spot? And let's say somebody goes up and they miss it. They miss the school record by a tiny bit, like let's say this much. If they just jump this much higher, maybe a centimeter or half an inch, depending on where you are in the world, um, that they would get the school record. The level of effort that they would put because they're so close would be a tension, and that would be a creative tension because they're so close. But let's say they missed it by a whole foot. Like, no matter how hard they could jump, they're just not going to get anywhere. Well, then they're probably not going to try very hard because they're a whole foot away. And let's say they get over it by a foot. They're probably not going to put a lot of tension in there because they're like, oh, shoot, I'm a foot over the record. That closeness of accomplishing your goal to the closeness of it increases the amount of what's called creative tension, um, tension that will entice you to create. So, although it looks like she cracked that thing right open, so it was a little harder than normal. She had a little bit more creative tension than normal, but anyways, I'm definitely going to try to make this one a little shorter than normal. It is 8:21 in the morning. I need to start work at 9. I think I might have to do some internal presentations right after my stand up today, so I need to make sure that I am firing on all 8 cylinders at work when when our meetings start. So I need to get, and it takes a minute to get the systems up and running and all that. Now, I will say that I'm one of the only people where I work that shuts down and brings up all of my systems every single day. I like to do a full shutdown on my computer and then restart it on a day-to-day basis. I once worked at this one place where they had these professional back-end developers that would get our Eclipse. We used this IDE called Eclipse. We'd get our and Java backend, and he would literally get our Eclipse and Java backend system running for us, and then we would go home and we would be good until for some reason we had to restart the computer, and then we'd have to find this guy, and he would come in and he would get us going again. And I just hated that feeling, so I've always tried really hard to know exactly how to bring down and bring up my systems and put a lot of thought into it and be able to do it slowly, like, and it like I could do it quickly, but I like to be able to be like every single day I'd lock in and say, okay, this is what I expect at this point, this is what I expect at that point, blah blah blah. And I have found that my day-to-day life in a job is a lot better when I can bring down and bring up my own systems on demand anytime I want. So here we go. When I first started coding, the way it worked was you would type in a number, like let's say the number 10, and then you type in a command, and then you type in another number, like let's say 20, and you type in a command. And what would happen is the basic program would look and it would find the numbers and would run them in order. So that means if you wrote a line of code 10, another line of code 20, and then another line of code 15 that was third, it would do 10, then the 15, and then the 20. And I don't know why that was ever a thing, um, but somebody, it was just easier for them that way. What they did not have was anything even vaguely like a function, but they did have flow control. And flow control is like when you have the if, then, those sorts of commands. It's like you're controlling the flow of the process. Um, so obviously the numbering is gone. Like it just didn't survive. Uh, it was something that someone thought was a good idea in the 1970s. It's not no longer considered a good idea today. You don't ever, I have never ever seen it after that original basic. But flow control is still around. So I've been heavily coding with flow control for 50 plus years now, or almost 50 years, I guess. Yeah, 50, 47 years. I've been coding day to day, literally flow control every single day. And I think what has happened is I've become way too dependent on that when it would be better to create a function as opposed to um, have a massive complex flow control scheme. So, but the thing is flow control is still around, so it's obviously still needed. And that's kind of what I'm struggling with right now is like, I want to write these unit tests. These unit tests are much, much more difficult with flow control than they are with, um, um, and flow control kind of is a synonym for branches in unit testing. So every time, um, and the branches are much, much harder. As you see, functions are the easiest thing, I think, to test. And then branches are the hardest thing to test. And so I've been steadily getting my branches um, coverage higher, and I'm up to 75%. But that is because I've been replacing them with functions. As you see, functions, I have 95%. And then statements, I've actually lost ground because I thought I had that in the 90s yesterday. But anyways, I did have a bug. There's nothing new about bugs. Bugs are a thing. And the bug ended up, after thinking about it, was because, okay, so this whole thing can go away. So that'll help with branches and flow control. Because this is one flow control. This is a branch, and then this is a line of code. So, um, but the problem was this available in this function here. For some reason, I had decided to default to false, even though in my actual code, I believe I was defaulting to true. And then I was like, it's just easier to do false. I actually remember thinking that. And that ended up coming back to bite me in the butt and causing a bug. Now, do I truly understand exactly why that caused a bug? No, I have not dug into that. But, um, you know, that's that. But I do know that when I made that to true, the bug went away. And the bug was that um, when I was adding new visualizations, it wasn't wrapping to the next line once the sum of the widths and positions of the visualizations was going to make it go off the page. That bug went away. I'm sure I could sit down and look in there. I also have these console logs, so if we clean that up, our numbers will get better. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start off easy. I know that what we have, what was I looking at? This loop and alert and stuff like that. Yeah, this stuff. So I know I don't want 238 through 241 at all. And I don't need escape count. If I get rid of that, and I can get rid of that line of code, 230 and 227. So let's go to 227. And I know that once I get rid of this, that ID will help me. Boom. Boom. And boom. So basically that was just, anytime I'm working with while loops, I always end up at some point in time creating a loop, an infinite loop, and then it's not as bad now. It used to be once you got stuck into an infinite loop, you were screwed. But anyways, our numbers should get better on this when we when we should actually lose a whole branch. So I'm gonna hit save. Let's see what happens. So our branches are 62 of 68. So I'm guessing it'll be 62, well, no, 61 of 67 when we're done. Oh, 62 of 67. So let's hit reload. Yep, 78.8, and our lines are back into the 90s. So that is good. I guess the unit tests are really doing a good job of just sharpening my skills. And I will say that I had to write some front-end code yesterday, and I just it was one of the clearest, most pleasant front-end coding, because there were just so many abstractions, and a lot of those abstractions. So I want to get rid of 298 next. 298. And then let's see. Not quite done. We're watching this guy right here. Reload. So that's gone now. And we are doing a little better. Okay, so now what I need to do is create an it function in my specification for my unit tests. I guess she's done with her nut. Are you done with your nut? Did you finish that? Was that a good nut? Was it a good nut, Brett? So, anyways, I don't know how often, I probably mention this all the time, but Rhett has been with us for at least 25 years now. I believe she's maybe 30 years. No, like 23, 25, maybe a little under, like 23 years. I don't know. She's over 30 years old. She's been with us for most of them. We got her when she was a teenager, basically. She was like 5 years old when we got her, and she was a pain in the butt. But she's definitely a lot better now. Okay, so this one, get viz for component. Looks like our next test that we want to write a test for. So basically it accepts a component and it returns the visualization. Gets a visualization for a component. And I think that I don't see anything wrong with writing a function that knows how to get the visualization. Now, so we have our visualizations, and then visualization, get viz for component. We have a visualization, and we go through all of the states visualizations. So I don't know, okay, no, we do not want it. We want to come down here. I'm trying to work from the bottom up at this point. Okay, get availability, and it's actually the rows availability, right, for potential siblings. So I know this name is awkward. I don't really like it, but I can't come up with a better one. But I'm going to change that to get row availability. Again, that was another thing that used to just be so... You didn't just merely just change the name of a function, because trying to figure out everything, every possible implication was challenging, especially in JavaScript, because JavaScript, you can kind of run functions and not actually know their name. Like the name could be calculated and you run it, and then it could be very difficult to actually debug. But now these modern coding styles that we've modified to, I never see anyone running a function by a calculated name anymore. And the IDEs really make it a lot easier to do that. All right, so get row gets row availability for potential siblings. I guess that's a good name. Gets the row availability. And it's really based on the existing siblings. And so that I believe is called an assertion, and it's a string. And then the other thing is called, no, that's the expectation, and then this is the assertion. Assertion is a function that we run this against. So we're just going to say this thing returns a Boolean, so we're going to say const is available, is row available. And that is equal to this dot get availability row. I love you too. Let me clear my throat. All right. So we have a couple of problems. The first problem is that we need some siblings, we need a visualization, and we need a port width. So let's go ahead and start to generate those. So we've already done siblings, right? So, and I think 3 makes sense. So let's just go ahead and copy this. So these are the potential siblings. And this does, like right now I'm doing what I absolutely said I was not going to do. And I am actually like starting to test actual functionality. I was like saying that all I want to do is, hey girl, all I want to do is get 100% coverage, and now it's like suddenly I'm thinking, and so we're gonna say, let's create another one, which is the current viz. So this is our current mock viz. So you'll see that it is in the same spot as this mock viz one. So these two are sitting in the exact same spot. So I believe when we have our siblings, it is possible, but not always guaranteed, that it may be in the exact same row. Because the default place that when you create one will be in the upper left corner. So basically, like when I go here, 100, and I add a visualization, right? When I add this next visualization, it's going to be here. So when it's evaluating this row for the next spot, it starts here. So it's actually in the same row with the other ones. Then it checks it against this spot, but it's up there. So it may or may not be in the exact same row. Now I don't really plan to unit test all of those sort of scenarios, but it's, for some reason, my brain is just doing really, really well today. I'm going to call it siblings, which is an array of ST visualizations. And I'm going to just assign them right out of the gate. Mockviz1, mockviz2, mockviz3, current mockviz. And then I'm going to give it the siblings. So that's the way I understand this working. I may be wrong, but that's the way I understand it. So the next thing is we want to pass in the current viz. So that is current mock viz. And then the next thing is the viewport width. So I would rather just name it. And I think the reason I like to name that, so we're going to say that this viewport is currently 150 wide. Like, I feel like you have a choice. Like, you could either put a comment in that describes what you want, or you can name the function the way you want to name it. So viewport width, and then, and it's not this, it's service. And just in case this is sort of a one-off view for you, you're just watching this, the only reason it's named service is because that's how it's defined at the top of this file. It's not something you just have to remember. It's just like when you, and it's by default from the Angular CLI. When it generated this this component, it or this service, it also generated a unit test for it. Now this is January 16th, 2025, and at this point the whole concept of Jasmine Karma has been deprecated. Don't know what that means. And it's deprecated, and the Angular team has not specified what they plan to move to. And apparently I saw yesterday that like Google let 50,000 employees go yesterday or this week, so like they're in massive flux over there, so who knows what is going to happen. But if you don't already know Carmen Jasmine, I don't know if it's worth learning. I already have learned it a lot and spent a lot of time before they deprecated it. I probably wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't, if it had already been deprecated. But anyway, so what I'm hoping is that my numbers get a little bit better. And I do have a complaint in here. It's because this one doesn't have an expectation. And so let's go up here and look at our numbers. All right, 82.6% on branches. We got a B, baby. So it was get row visibility. So I think, let me see, I never know. I like being able to see when I hit the refresh, I like seeing it go from red to green, but I also like seeing the number change. And you can't really see both. So that's where it gets called. Oh, good. We got full coverage, and I think it's because, I guess it's just because the length is equal to 0. So we passed this, so this branch got marked as passed, and we're good. So basically, the row should not be available, right? Because this is the candidate, and we're trying to see if it can fit in with these guys. But the width of the port is 150, and these are already taking all 150. So that should be a false. So we would expect is row available to be false. And let's just hope that that's what it is. If not, if it is, then we get to move on to the next thing. If it's not, then we got to dig in. Yep, okay, it was, well, it's still saying I don't have an expectation. Checks right position against width. Oh. Okay, so apparently I never did add one here. So let's go back and take care of that. Should be easy. I would expect this is going to return a false, but I'm not 100% on that. Let's look real quick. So it returns a Boolean. So um, const compare right to width and available. So available is equals. And just for fun, and just for the sake of habit, I'm just gonna strongly cast type that, say, which would be nice because if I do ever change the signature, I'll get like a sort of a reminder that, hey, there's something that we might need to take a look at in the unit tests. Okay, and then since the right is wider than the width, I think we expect a false, right? Yep. Um, expect available. To, so this isn't going to help our this will not help our like coverage because we're already covering it, but it will help the it'll get rid of this warning because it's no longer true. Okay, so that worked. All right, so now here we go again. Okay, so is row gets called. It seems like it should just, all we need to do is make sure that we give it a, so is row available uses the current list. Current viz list. See, it's kind of weird because current viz list, I don't know where that's coming from. Because it doesn't get passed in and it doesn't get calculated here. Okay, that is weird. Isn't that weird? That's weird, right? Current viz list is an array. It does not. Okay, let's go look at it in the actual code. Is row available? So let's say that's line 239. I'm trying to get more in the habit of looking at this line and then coming over here and looking, because that is, while searching for things works really great in in JavaScript and in TypeScript, it is not quite as effective in oh, okay, so this dot visualizations that is the current viz list, because that's whenever you have a for loop, it automatically passes in three things: the index, the current viz list. Um, so this is the problem, or this may be an issue that is easily resolved by passing in the current viz list from is row available. Um, but anyways, I was saying, like, when you're using in C sharp, I found that in C sharp and .NET, it's a lot easier to find the row number, to get the number off of whatever is showing you an error or whatever, the line number, and then go find it that way, as opposed to searching for the name. Because um, at least the code seems to be more distributed and more fragmented in C sharp. Like, and it's for good reason. You know, they kind of separate the way typically people like sort of abstract things a lot more and separate things into, like, they have a lot more things that they get separated into, like databases and workflow engines and all kinds of different things as they get services. SignalR would be like kind of an example of something that, like, you would make a specific service that only deals with that. So anytime any kind of goodie comes around, it ends up being its own sort of separate module. I don't know what the right words are for that. I'm not really super strong in that. I'm capable. I'm very capable, but not super strong. Um, anyways, so what we want to do is do a bit of an analysis here. Okay, it's 8:48, so I'm just going to figure this out. Control F is row available. So I'm hoping that whatever calls this, I can just pass in the visualizations. Um, yeah, so here I can, there's absolutely no reason not to pass in this dot visualizations. So like basically like this. Well, maybe. I don't think so because I think this has full access. The fewer touch points, I guess, I'm trying to come up with the right words for this, but the fewer touch points to state variables. So in this case, it would be a service attribute variable, um, or service attribute. The fewer touch points to that, the better. Um, the easy and the more like they're sort of all compressed into one place, the better things go. So we may end up doing the same thing with get available top. Is we might end up passing in the visualization list there on line 220 up here, and then making this a variable as we work our way up. And then uh, um, visualizations array. And then as we do that, basically we'll like this because now this is becoming we are converting this from an impure function, a function that depends on um, information outside of itself, to a more pure function. And I don't think there's even any side effects to this one. I think all it does is return a value. So I think it's a pure, what they call idempotent um, um, function. It's a function that always returns the same thing for the same given things. It doesn't change anything outside of itself. Um, so basically, we have generated. So none of our unit tests break. This still won't fix anything because basically we just did this. But now this test is row available, so much easier to unit test. Um, and then let's just make sure nothing broke because it's going to be a real pain tomorrow morning to figure this out if that broke it. All right, so that is good. It is 8:51. I do need to make sure I'm just rolling I'm firing on all 8 cylinders at 10 a.m. and in a short hour and 8 minutes. So everybody, here we go. We are getting close. We're 95%, 97%, 95%, and 82%. So we're getting very close. Our number of branches are dropping every step of the way. And if the branch doesn't drop, it becomes like easier. It's more isolated. So basically tomorrow, I think we want to, basically I think we just want to call it is available row, give it some visualizations, give it a visualization, basically almost exactly like what we did, but instead of the width, we're going to give it a row number, which I believe it should be 0. So and then basically it should loop through there, and all of this stuff should get fired off, and then we can get rid of all these all these comments, unnecessary, the comments that aren't necessary. There are some comments we're going to want to keep, and it should be easy peasy to test that tomorrow. And then my guess is whatever calls this thing is available. Well, I guess we'll work our way up, and basically um, yeah, we're probably going to want to see if I can get this visualizations, this thing we just changed. We're probably going to want to get that to be a variable that gets called of a like this, an argument, and then see where we're at. Um, See if we want, because it'll be very very simple to create a function that return that it gets um, the not found and increments this. Like that'd be simple to pull into its own function that gets called and returns the current row. I guess that's all we're looking for is the current row out of it. So it'll just be current row equals get next row or get row, and then say not found, get row, blah 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 blah. Anyways, happy coding everybody. Bye.